evening, one and all present here today. Welcome to the very first episode of India EduTech series. The COVID-19 pandemic, apart from doing multitudes of damage, has broken our decades-old perspectives of normal in most aspects of our lives. Nearly every part of the education system has had to evolve dramatically in the last few months. The Indian education system is witnessing a radical shift triggered by sweeping reforms, innovative technology, and changing lifestyles. My name is Anushka, and I am a student of English literature and a content writer at Career Clinic. Today, we have with us Mr. Abir Mojumdar, founder of Learning Hall. Mr. Abir is a strategist with deep industry experience. He is the author of the book, The Idea Factory. He also works on innovative and academic guidance space. The Learning Hall is an edtech startup that is making a difference in the education landscape of India. As a learning and development specialist, Mr. Abir is a teacher, trainer, and visiting faculty and is working with the academic fraternity over the years. Through his entrepreneurship and business writing, Mr. Abir has started the Thought Leadership Movement, a knowledge revolution in India. We also have with us Mr. Kaushik Chatterjee, founder, CEO of Career Clinic. Kaushik, with his deep experience in the IT industry, is an avid observer of the edtech space. He is on a mission to help children get into the most enjoyable careers. Kaushik is an ICF leadership coach and a sales specialist. He has built and led several businesses in his long association with HCL. In this series, we are going to hear academia and industry experts talk about the big shifts that are defining the big bets of education in India post the pandemic. With that,
thanks so much, Anushka, for an indulgent intro. Nice to see student interns like you taking a lead in conversations like this. So hey, Abir, welcome you to the talk series. I'm sure we are going to have a volley of questions, but I am really keen to understand from you, given your background and the deep work that you do in this sector. Abir, the first question is, what are the radical shifts, if I may call the seismic changes, that you see in the education system, especially in the backdrop of current times?
Thank you, Kaushik, and thank you, Anushka, for the short introduction. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to be in a program like this to discuss about the various elements of education and the academic sector. We are in 2022 and fortunately kind of put behind the last 2 years behind us. The last 2 years have been exceedingly, what should I say? It has not been very good for the academic sector because students had to let go of their normal routine, had to be locked at home, had to do the online classes, and obviously they have lost a lot in the last 2 years. This year, hopefully, we are trying to make up, and schools have reopened in April, and we see a lot of students on the roads entering schools, and this is a very interesting phase wherein after 2 years we are able to see students back on the schools. Teachers are back, the academic system is back, and there's a lot of excitement and enthusiasm to get back on track and try to make up time over the last 2 years. But at the same time, we also have to remember the last 2 years have brought in systemic changes in the academic sector with the online learning module. So today, as schools open up or the education system open up, we are seeing a blended model slowly developing, wherein both online and offline are kind of trying to coexist together, though there is a shift towards offline, but definitely online is a way of life today. So today classes, there are videos there are notes, there are PDFs that are being shared by the schools, and not every time students are expected to come to school. So whenever there's an issue, the schools can be managed online. In fact, in recent times in Calcutta, because of the heat wave, the schools are pre-closed for the summer vacation on the 2nd of May next week, which means that we are taking care of the fact that the mental and physical health of the people are of great concern, which perhaps was not so much important before COVID. Now we are actually very, very careful that anything that might happen, that might hamper the physical and the mental health of the student are being taken care of immediately. At the same time, the blended delivery model is going to work now with the physical and the digital coming together. At the same time, the learning methodologies have changed because now schools have adopted a lot of digital methodologies which they did not do before COVID. So the artificial intelligence is already in the classroom. There are personalized learning lessons that are given to students, which they can self-pace, which they can study on their own time, and also they can improve their study capabilities over a period of time. There are a lot of changes. Academics have also tied up with some online setups to provide these extra services, but put together it has become a very holistic approach towards education. Today, teachers at the back end, you have those video content, and these have actually given a lot of tool or ammunition to the school to deliver better service to the students. Put together, I think these are exciting times also, and we feel that education has changed forever. What had taken maybe a decade before has been achieved in the last 2 years, and this year we are definitely going to see a great leap of the education sector. In the meantime, I think a lot of focus is going for the new education policy that has come in 2020, and only recently there has been a meeting with the government as to see the progress of the education policy and to what extent it is translating to changes in the ground. My question to Mr. Kaushik Chatterjee is, how do you see the new education policy being impacted or improved in the year 2022?
So that's a very pertinent one, Abir, and that's a huge subject by itself. I am not sure, the disclaimer is I'm not an expert on this, but let me at least give you some highlights that I'm aware of. Before that, let me take a step back and look at what's the purpose of education. There has been huge debate all across the globe, but one that I think we all subscribe is education is all about integral development of an individual, right? I mean, such that he or she sort of attains a fuller life, a better life. So from literacy to self-development to gainful livelihood, right? And livelihood is key because any education without livelihood is sort of loses its relevance. And with livelihood comes financial independence, health security, work-life balance, lifestyle, and I think humans evolved. All that list will get longer. Now, going back in our traditional Indian context, the pursuit of knowledge, what we used to call gyan, wisdom, pragya, and truth, satya, was always considered to be an Indian thought and philosophy at the highest human goal, right? So gyan, pragya, and satya, and I think that sort of imbibes the aim of education even now. So it is not just the acquisition of scholarly knowledge, preparation for the life in this world or life beyond schooling, but for the complete realization and liberation of the self. Now, in this regard, in this backdrop, the National Education Policy 2020 is a big step to imbibe the traditional ethos while recognizing, the sweeping changes that has happened in terms of technology, urbanization, consumer behavior, etc. And I think it's all hinged around the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. Out of the 4 goals, it's the 4th goal, which sort of says that, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and, sort of promote a lifelong learning opportunities. Now, some of the key highlights, sort of it really defines education, not just literacy and numeracy, but also takes the other factors of developing cognitive capabilities, right? I mean, Does a child grow up to solve problems, to think critically, build social and emotional capacities? All this while nurturing the creative potential. That's number one. Number two that I like about it is it offers a continuum of learners from school education, higher education, skill development, professional development. So it's like kind of a holistic and single sign-on to the way the system gets reformed. And even I'm happy to see adult education also getting covered in the policy. Uh, it talks about the need to build a synergy in curriculum across all levels. One of the greatest disconnect is, what's taught in the primary doesn't really hold good for the middle schools and then by the secondary. So this sort of building synergy in curriculum across all levels, which should directly impact learner interest and learner engagement, outcome, and the whole learning experience. And I think NEP sort of acknowledged pedagogy to be a cornerstone. So there is deeper science and research that is getting into this so that it can be holistic, engaging, integrated, enjoyable, not just what you learn, but how you learn. Arts integrated, sports integrated learning, gamified learning, empowering students through flexibility of course choice. So all of this, I think, has come to the forefront for the first time in our education system. And I see also the boundaries between the curricular, extracurricular, co-curricular, the academic versus vocational, the science, humanities, commerce, arts, etc. These are getting blurred. There is also a clear focus on results like universal access, inclusion, dropout curtail rates, and taking the policy sort of took into consideration the entire ecosystem. So the learner, the teacher, the faculty, the learning environment, the standards, the regulators. In fact, from a regulatory perspective, a very nice phrase has been coined. It says it has to be light but tight, balancing control and flexibility. And I really like that part. Focus on quality academic research in all of the learning, factors that I spoke about. So how do I write better? How do I create the framework better? How do I teach better? So there is, in fact, a whole body which will be sort of taking care and driving and more, popularizing research on the deep research on the quality and the academic side. Very happy to see that teachers and faculty are coming back at the heart of the system. The place that they actually held centuries before in our society. So, their capabilities, their development, their certification. I think all of this put together, that sort of will give back their most respected place in the society. And I think that's one of the fundamental shift that can happen if this policy really rolls out and enacts the way it has been stated. And then one big shift is sort of segregating the school journey into 4 levels, right? And things like breaking it into secondary, middle, preparatory, foundational. So this is like I think a revolution by itself, because we are now for the first time taking even the kindergarten, the early childhood care and education part of it also into cognizance, right? And look at our local traditions. Look at our childhood. I think a lot of us in our childhood, we grew up understanding stories, poetries, fables, games, songs, and more. So all of this are now getting mainstream and getting structured through this framework, right? Multilingualism, so all that debate that's happening in the nation, but home language, mother language, regional language, let the child learn the best way they can learn. And I think there is a clear piece that no language will be imposed into the state. It's the state's call to figure out what's the best part of it. Recognize that mathematics and mathematical thinking will be very important. And I think mathematics, anyway, the zero was invented in India. So we are back in that piece where it sort of felt like it will be very important for India's future, India's leadership role in the numerous upcoming fields and professions. Look at artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, blockchains, and you cannot do away with mathematics and mathematical thinking. You need not to be a mathematical wizard, but I think the very fact that it's sort of building and taking cognizance that a wholer skill set around, a wholer exposure around this will be required. The need for learning communities have been highlighted. So right from the Anganwadis to the middle schools, the ashram salas, even in the teacher communities, emphasis has in fact also been given in peer-based learning. I remember I used to learn best when I used to work with my peer. we used to have study day out, and that was the best form of coaching that we had. So all in all, I will say it's a very holistic, very connected, deeply engaged, flexible, at the same time, packed with innovative outlines, with vehicles of implementation, accountability, and governance. This is just a bird's eye view, and I think it's a lot more out there. And I will encourage all of us in this room to take a copy of it, and maybe we'll share the copy of the National Education Policy also, and just go through it. And I think it is very important for us to understand what's going to happen in 25 and 30 and 2040. That's sweeping reforms that's going to happen, and I'm sure there's a lot of political intent and will in making this happen. So, Abir, you have been in the space of academic guidance both for schools and college students. So, how do you see the lines between school education and let's say the private teaching, the private tuition centers, sort of blurring? And in the context of the pandemic and and the NEP that's coming up, what do you feel that teachers can do differently?
Right. Kaushik, first of all, it was a very good brief of the national education policy that you have lined out now, which kind of sets the tone of the discussion today. Because today we are standing here discussing education threadbare, and here we have a policy in our hand, which is kind of breaking all the boxes that existed for decades and trying to rebuild a student life and give him the freedom to get a career of his choice. I think that makes it a lot more easier for us to address student education, because today he can pick and choose in a much freer way. It has become very fluid now. So the word that we would like to use, education, it is now fluid. It has moved from solid state to the fluid state. And that is a wonderful, advancement of the education system. And that would help us a lot to reach out to the student in the right way. There is a story which says that I would say there's a quote: if you expect a fish to climb a tree and then you expect that to be a genius, you will never be able to do it, because the place of the fish is in the pond and not in climbing the tree. So we are kind of redefining the student content, and today we know there are so many options available to an adult to choose so many careers. Similarly, the choice is available to the student also. Having said that, as this sets the backdrop, and also at the back end, you have this entire digitization that has happened in academics. Put together, we are in very exciting times of changing academic, goals, careers, the entire landscape. Okay. And in the process, both schools as well as edtech startups, there are too many of them today. Okay. If you have followed the last 2 years, there are about 5 to 10 good edtech startups that we can talk about, which comes at the top of our mind. And each of them have a strength that can reach to the student in a multilingual way, in a multifarious way. So the school and the edtech actually complement each other. While the school may be very, very strong on their content part, EdTech has also developed their own video content and converted the books into videos. And that's how they are able to reach out to the student in a much better way. So when they complement each other, these are times when both the EdTech as well as the schools are kind of tying up in various ways and see how they can reach out to the student in a better way. So no more, if you compare it with the private tuition as well as the today's edtech methodology. This edtech and schools are a very complementing combination, which allows them to go to the student, reach out to the student in a much better way. And that's how education has become so very exciting today. Okay. So that way, in the same time, because these educational videos are now easily available to the schools, the two teachers can actually come out of their routine roles, which they have been doing for years together, and then can do the value added work, which they can on the interpretation and the connecting beyond the curriculum to connect the whole thing to real life examples can be done by the teachers. So teachers' role are very, very enhanced. At the same time, this technology has also trained teachers. Teachers also, like students, teachers didn't found themselves in a sea when suddenly it went, tech heavy overnight. Okay, but after 2 years, teachers are efficiently trained. They have managed the gap, and also so teachers have become tech heavy. They are now contributing to overall, be going beyond the routine classes because the videos are now helping, and that's how teachers are helping guiding the students in a much better and a holistic way. Now students are also opening up to teachers now that the blended model has started, and indeed the bonding between a teacher and student has definitely changed in these 2 years, and today they are actually kind of come closer together and addressing education in a total proper way. So put together, I would say school going forward, edtech and schools will have a very long way to go. They have great complementing capabilities. They can tie up on various aspects, reach out to larger number of students, go beyond the classroom, physical classroom, and that will give a great freedom to students. Today we are known like there's a school chain like DPS, which has about 700, 800 branches today, but there are many schools which are maybe 2 branches or maybe 3 branches. Okay, but with this edtech tie-up, their material or their content can reach out to so many students across the country without being physically present. So this physical versus the digital combination gives a great combination. At the same time, teachers, schools, and edtech can work together on dedicated content which may go beyond the syllabus also, and that might add greater value because it's not only about the syllabus. Today we are looking at students holistically, we are building students holistically, so there will be a lot of content that will be given to students which is beyond the syllabus. So maybe edtech and schools can work together and build up these kind of capabilities which were not available to students so far. I think these are some of the thoughts that I have. I'm sure there are many more. But then my question to Kaushik is, Kaushik, now we have already come to the concept of edtech and technology, but how do you see this, technology evolving? And, how do you think it will shape up education in the near future? And how is that shaped it today?
A very pertinent question, and I think there has been a huge impact. The good has become best. So all of the technologies that today we talk about, whether it's video conferencing, virtual tutoring, online learning, alternate schooling, all of this have actually been born much before the pandemic. But I think they just used this time, and the technology was absolutely ready. Like in the case of health, a lot of digital adoption actually made sail us through the crisis in a lot easier way. I think there was a readiness in terms of the digital piece, the tech piece in the education that really helped us. So, those companies that smartly made this product, they quickly went, suited the changing needs, offering the teachers and students, unlimited video conferencing time, auto translation capabilities, real-time co-editing, smart calendar scheduling, all these pieces. And to do so quickly and especially in a time of crisis, I think they had to really ramp up, and kudos to all these organizations who had put up a huge global server infrastructure and engineering capabilities to ensure reliable connectivity. So the first impact is what was produced is definitely delivering results. And I see, this is impacting even beyond the digital. I have seen come across even at regional levels, educational broadcast channels. Now, they have all been there. There have been a lot of DTH operators offering educational channels, but I think that has become very pertinent. And there was more qualification of content and demography, and a lot of digital options, easy to subscribe methodologies that sort of came in. The other thing that I think the adoption of professional courses have become very prevalent, and this is like the other end of the spectrum. One of every 2 professionals that I meet, I see they have undertaken some form of certification online, and I know they're also today these organizations, the certifying organizations. There are a lot of globals. There is Indian Unicorn also. They're also geared up to offer degree equivalent world-class education at a fraction of the cost, and with complete self-paced empowerment, control, and quality guidance to the learner. Right? So that is a huge shift of access. And we're democratizing quality access. Whenever you democratize, you at times compromise in quality, but this is like a quality access that was absolutely untapped has now become a norm. Many teachers and professors that I interacted, they're already touting the benefits of technology. They say that it has changed the way of teaching. It has enabled them to reach out to students more efficiently and effectively, through things like chat groups, video meetings, polls, document sharing. And most of them believe they struggled in the initial days, but I think they had their own learning curve, and a lot can be done to even induct a newer set of teachers with this digital literacy. But most of them believe that traditional offline learning and e-learning can go hand in hand. The one impact that technology did is it starkly manifested the digital divide, not just in India, but the others, right? So, there's like the PC access out in India is just about 47%, 45%, and the internet access out there is 47%. So at best, there are 45% Indian students between the India and the Bharat who has an access to online classes. And so there was a digital divide. There are at especially the beginning of the pandemic part of it, a good amount of the population were actually left behind to take advantage of this. And that's where I think it's manifested. We saw a few states going to the elections, they're doling out laptops to students. Nothing new, it has been done in the past, but I think it was more pertinent and more relevant, as a gesture from the states. Now, for those who do not have access to the right technology, there is evidence that learning online can be more effective in a number of other ways also, right? And I think I was looking at some research, it actually says that, students retain more material when learning online compared to, like it's like 25% online and 10% retention in a classroom. And because, mostly due to the students being able to learn, but I think this is true for certain set of students and not all. And so, the faster learner actually learns faster. The fast learner learns faster, using the technology part of it, right? Now, since studies have shown that children also extensively use their senses to learn, the visual sense, the auditory sense, and so a little away from the rote learning part of it, making learning fun, effective through use of technology. I think that is what definitely there is a bigger impact. Learning has become fun. So quite a few Indian edtech providers, Abir, we spoke about them. They're working on gamifying learning. So it is observed that clever integration of games has demonstrated higher engagement, obviously increased motivation towards learning, especially among younger students. It's like making them truly fall in love with learning. And if you see all the TV commercials and the adverts that those organizations take, they actually make it very lovable. The young children are like, sort of, chasing their parent and say, hey, this is about it. Let's have some fun. Look at the national education policy. They also spoke about mass reforms, I think, which is hinging around technology at the core. So there's something is spoken in the NEP called National Assessment Center, which is like Parak is the name, and to set standards for consistent and unified evaluations. Now, as we have seen some consolidations of national level testing already happening, and as this happens more, that requires significant tech adoptions. And there's this other piece called the National Repository of I think it's high quality resource or something like it's called Diksha. So it's basically for the early learners, so creating a repository, all those fables, the stories, the paintings, and all those niceties together. And that's where a technological intervention obviously will serve as an aid to teacher. It will help bridge any form of language barriers that may exist, and all of this will be there. And you spoke about unicorns. I just looked at 4 out of 99 in India. There are, I think, 99 or going to be 100 unicorns, and 4 of them are on the edtech category. But the pipeline looks a lot stronger from the edtech piece. This 4 actually reaped the benefit pre-pandemic, and they obviously gotten into. Globally, there are 35 plus unicorns. So there is huge focus on technology or tech companies driving pieces and at levels of curriculum, tutoring, language, education, uh, uh, corporate learning, coaching. So the whole spectrum of education has been touched by technology. So Abir, from this context, how do you see organizations like Learning Hall? And you may talk a little bit about what Learning Hall does. How do you see such organizations impacting the landscape in the near future?
Right. Kaushik, you have actually very, beautifully defined how education has changed with the help of technology. And today we are very powerful. And of course, we should give the credit of the technology not only to the pandemic, but I'm sure there have been a decade of work or 2 decades of work that has been defined by the information technology and the telecom, and both came handy when the lockdown happened. So basically, there is a maybe 2 decades or 25 years of effort that has gone into what education may enjoy today. But having done that, having said that, it is also a great responsibility for a startup like the Learning Hall to add a greater value to education per se, because now you have a lot of tools through which you can reach out to the students in a very without him stepping out of his home. But at the same time, institutions like Learning Hall has the power to provide education or value addition on education in a much better way. So basically what we are enjoying a privileged position because of the availability of tool techniques and the overall focus that is coming through. The spotlight is on edtech today. So it's a great time for to be an edtech startup today. While we understand there is competition, there are bigger unicorns, as you rightly said, who have already reaped great benefits by already economies of scale. But education is something which is a fundamental right for India, and there's room or work for everybody. What Learning Hall wants to do is basically today we have a great plan ahead, a large plan ahead. But let us talk to you about our current plans. Our current plan is basically our focus is on K-12 education, which means that our school-going children up to 12 with a focus on science and mathematics. Why? Because we feel that the nation needs more scientists, more technologies, and more automated people with a technical bent of mind to bring in take the country forward. Okay, so herein it might be age old while we had studied engineering and science many decades back, but today somehow it has got diluted from its position, and we don't see science as a epitome of the importance. As you rightly said, the teachers are slowly coming back in terms of focus, but maybe science and technology also should come back to focus, and how this is going to spur innovation or change in the country. So Learning Hall is more focused on science and mathematics today, and hopes to inspire students to pursue science and engineering and technology and stay within the country and see how much development they can offer to that. So we are kind of on a mission as to how to influence the thinking. At the same time, we are also trying to bring in creativity which is in sync with the new education policy, as to creativity in the science and technology space, how students can think big right from their schooling days, and how that can translate into big plans as you become an adult. Okay, so here we are kind of taking up a very large role, maybe a kind of guiding force or a parenting role, where we are trying to discover the talent and trying to bring creativity in their field and see how students can prosper. Of course, we have to go with the curriculum because we are an academic institute, so we will have to follow the academic curriculum, but we also want to go beyond it and bring in a lot of video content and knowledge pieces that will enable students to think better, bigger, and come out of their rote learning method. I think there's a very good step that has already happened, because the students are slowly coming out of their rote learning methodology, and more applications, more and more projects are coming up. Video based content is a great retaining power. So put together, education is improving, but at the same time we are also on a mission to see that science and technology India plays a larger role in science and technology in the days to come. Tomorrow, we want to see our own set of Nobel Prizes, which, you don't see Nobel Prizes in India. Yeah, you see a lot of other prizes, but science and advancements in technology are more given to institutions than to individuals. But at the back end, there are also individuals who can survey. So maybe this is also, we can also bring in thoughts about fundamental sciences, because the BSc, the MSc, and the PhDs, these have somehow reached a roadblock in India, because most of them go into job ready courses, into engineering and MTech and things like that. But fundamental sciences are the ones which advances the nation. So why not bring in a bit of a focus back to fundamental sciences and see how we can add value. These are, we are at a very preliminary stage. Okay, so learning hall is not very big today, but we have a grand vision, and we hope that we can impact education to some extent in India in the near future. How much time it will take, we don't know, but we are trying our best. Now, my question to Mr. Kaushik Chatterjee is, Mr. Kaushik Chatterjee, how do you think Career Clinic can help students define or decide their career early on, which people do change later on, but how Career Clinic is going to help students understand their talent and define their career very early.
Thanks, Abir, for bringing me in my zone. But before that, I will also invite audience to put in the questions in the Q&A section. I know we'll have some time left, I'm sure, to sort of talk to you. So, Abir, at Career Clinic, we believe that careers can actually be built by choice and not by chance. Humans have the power of choice, so why not exercise it? So there are two aspects of it, how to choose, what is the best career for me, how to choose, and then how to pursue. Having known the best career or the best options, how do I pursue and actually achieve the career? So on the how to choose part of it, I think one of the mantra is get them young. Even the national education policy, they were suggesting to offer a wide exposure to the middle school, that 6 to 8 standard, 11 to 14 years. And in fact, if you go through in details, it will talk about giving them a huge set of not just academic inputs, but social inputs, environmental inputs. And these are all going to be embedded in as part of the curriculum. So there is like a readiness for the child across curricular, co-curricular, and extracurricular pieces. So I'd say the best point of intervention, and with our experience of offering our programs and our guidances to hundreds of children, we are sure that the best point of intervention is class 8. So because by now they have formed a bit of what they like, how they like, I mean to say preferences, what sort of interest them, what motivates them, etc. Now, the big piece is a class 8 student may not be able to articulate or express, or even more difficult is the person on the other side, could be his parents or near and dear ones. It is also, maybe the way we interject is also not a very congenial form of seeking a response, right? So what happens is it stays, whatever is in their mind, it stays within the child. And that's where the intervention of career guidance can actually make a lot of impact. And we figured out that a well-researched assessment can actually check on these parameters, possibly map into career options, and that is a great starting point because you have some bit of a diagnostics in front of you. In fact, we use one that uses a framework called occupational psychology. So what sort of a psychology will lead to what sort of occupations. And this instrument, it's an amazing instrument, by the by, done by one of the world-renowned psychologists. This instrument can sniff the preference, the motivators, and the interests. In fact, some 175 human traits give a reliability score to the extent, is it that the child is responding in a fair way with complete awareness and honesty? And then we can map the career with enjoyment scores, and enjoyment is key, right? How much of enjoyment, how much of a satisfaction will I happen if I'm able to pursue, let's say, a career in financial forensics, or if I become a sports scout? Now, having that diagnostics, it sets the tone sort of a process of conversation, of deep collaboration. And I think the most significant part of a successful guidance would be if you can collaborate with the stakeholders, parents for sure, and if possible even teachers. So conversation, collaboration, and information sharing, that's the rest part of it. So that it validates the diagnostics. Certain things goes out, certain things comes in. It creates a very reliable and acceptable short list, and it gets the best stakeholder consensus, because it is important for a child to move ahead. There has to be an approver, there has to be a financier, right? And more importantly, it creates a very safe and confident and reliable space to work for the child. You cannot express your preferences in a point where there's fear, right? So that sort of safety, confidence, and reliable space is sort of given to work, and that is essential when you build a longer pathway. A pathway, I mean to say, which club in the school to join? Should I get into the photographic club or the astronomy club? Now today it's just happening by just by that, but just think about if this can also be one of the decision criteria. What stream to take? I think we all struggle. What tests to prepare in the 11th and the 12th? What skills to improve? As a child, do I need to improve public speaking? Do I need to improve storytelling? Do I need to improve resume writing? So what knowledge is to gather? What project should I be doing so that I get a knowledge of how organizations work, or how logistics company they sort of ship materials and connects technology and movement. Now, and even what experience to acquire through internships. I see today, in fact, especially in the urban, I will say the SEC A and B, I see like almost, my estimate is 20% of the students are actually doing, 20% of the UG students are actually doing more than one internships or projects. And I think that's building up their CV, and that's a very welcome change because they are gaining experience and acquiring knowledge. If that can fall in that pathway rather than being rampant, I work for a beauty wellness company, and then I decide to do, work for electric vehicle company. Nothing wrong, but then there is this randomness may not finally yield the desired impact. And a career guidance pathway, a blueprint can actually stitch all of these pieces together and create a very, very formidable stack for the student. So, in fact, in this journey, parents are change agents. So they need to be coached. Beliefs, biases, they need to be addressed. So that is where they can create a stress-free and a supporting environment for the journey. And we are increasingly finding out and have started giving interventions to parents, and they're welcoming it, they're loving it, right? Because they also would like to know how to cope with this change. And at the heart of heart, they all feel that my child should grow up and be happy, and maybe a little bit wealthy as well. So to summarize, I may say, there is more awareness. There are, of course, more providers in this category. So that's good news in a way, but we are in a competitive landscape. And even, in fact, parents are also looking at more long-term options. And I'll just take a minute to talk about, the emerging careers, the way I see it. So there is dramatic scientific technological advances, right? Let's say big data, machine learning, artificial intelligence, etc. Some unskilled jobs will be moving. There will be need for skilled workforce. And that is where there is need to work in conjunction with multidisciplinary abilities, and we already see a lot of cross-credit courses being permitted. So science, social science, humanities, psychology, with these will be increasingly in greater demand. So liberal sciences, or whatever name we may call it, you will definitely be seeing a rise of careers that will require interdisciplinary learning. Now, let's take about climate change, a lot being talked about, and I'm sure all of us are getting the heat of it also. Let's say pollution, depleting natural sources, catastrophe, and all that. Now, that will be a sizable shift in how we meet the world's energy, the water, the food, the sanitation. So again, there's resulting in the need for a new skilled labor. Right? So particularly in biology, chemistry, physics, agriculture, maybe climate science, social science. So again, there is an intersection and a union that will be required. Growing emergence of epidemics, pandemics. We'll also be calling for, let's say, collaborative research in things like infectious disease management, development of vaccines, resultant social issues. So it's like it's no longer a singular core. in all the learning today are getting stitched together. Careers are actually stitched where you have multiple skills. You have a clinical skill, you got a social skill, you got a psychology skill, and that's how possibly will become a super health worker. So there will be a growing demand for humanities and arts. And I think as India moves towards becoming a developed country, as well as one of the three largest economies of the world, and we see a lot of intent in taking about the Pride India part of it. So I'm sure that will be definitely on. So in fact, we measure enjoyment against 750 careers. So I'm excited to see both of us being in very, very different and very challenging and exciting times. Yeah, Abir.
Right. I think this is very exciting, Kaushik. I think we are, meeting at some point because both of us are, trying to redefine the way career is being seen by students today vis-a-vis what we have grown with and what vis-a-vis in sync with what are the changes happening today. India will be defined by a talent. It is slowly transforming into a talent economy, which means that every talent will get its piece of, support in the sun. We will start slowly come out of the traditional mold. We are slowly coming out of the traditional mold, and we are breaking it up into various careers of various choices based on the talent and capability of the student. And this is becoming a very exciting tomorrow. Your jobs, your careers will actually, mold itself to the talent also, and vice versa. Even talent will get molded by the jobs that are created. If you study the job market, as you rightly said, even today's jobs will not be there 5 years down the line, and maybe after 10 years down the line, they will be completely different. So while on one hand there is this academics that we are preparing students with, there is always another part of the life, which is the job part. And maybe this academics and the job part will have to be interfaced in such a way that once you come out of the academics, you have multiple choices available to you, and there is a career path which kind of directional path that you already have in place while you finish up your academics. Okay, so I think, as you rightly said, the learning hall also has a very big role to play in terms of interfacing between academics and industry. Why? Because industry, so far, the way we have been brought up into the job market, we found very little correlation between our academics and our industry experience. And today, whatever we are doing is we can do it much better. That's why many people shift courses, because they find that that may not be in sync with the academics that they have gone through. So, okay, so basically what we should do in the tomorrow is to link up the academics and the industry and see how we can do that. But before that, we have a big role to play in terms of education, student making education a pleasure and not a job to do or a responsibility. It has to be a fun initiative, and these are golden childhood years of the student, of the child. I mean, if we burden him down with a lot of academic pressure, he loses his entire fun of it. So put together, I think learning hall and career clinic, we kind of give a enjoyable experience to students, and allow them to choose careers, help them discover their talent as to what kind of talent they can, and of course we can give them multiple options as they go forward. I think
Absolutely.
these are the kind it's a combination that we can think of.
Yeah. So Abir, we also have a question from Rupali Charan, and Rupali has asked that NAP has proposed that foreign universities to set up campuses in India, and that's right. So what impact will it be on our education system? Quick pointers from you.
From me? Okay. Yeah.
Maybe I can also go with my thoughts.
Okay. I'll give you one or two points. Maybe you can continue from there. It is indeed, 100% FDI possibility in certain areas in academic sector. So foreign institutes can open up campuses in India, which is very good for us in one sense. Why? Because India is become a global hotspot. Okay. Which means that if the foreign education centers are coming to India, it will save Indians to go abroad and do the same education. And it comes closer home, so you get world-class education at home. At the same time, it also brings our own education system up, because you put in, it's as in every industry, the more global competition is there, the better it is for the industry. So this also brings in the best out of the academic sector. Tomorrow, we should be, if we turn the tables, tomorrow we should be able to open campuses outside in other countries 10 years down the line, and all of us have to work towards it. So in a way, it's kind of a win-win. They grow, we grow, and that is globalization. So if they open up campuses in India, it's good. If we open up campuses outside India, it's also good. So one way, tomorrow, we hope to see our institute opening up centers outside, which means that they are become global by all standards. I think that's from my side. Kaushik, you can.
No, absolutely. I completely echo. Competition is absolutely fair and good to have. And so it's a borderless world. And as you said, it just makes our processes right. Maybe we get world-class education at a right price. And so sort of, and education becomes maybe one more diplomacy. That is required in this little restless world. Maybe it gives one more ammunition to talk to nations in a way also. So that's all from Abir, I think, for today's talk series, and I'm sure, we'll definitely get some more inputs for the next one. And so I would just like to thank the audience and give it back to Anushka. Anushka.
Thanks much to all in the room for being here with this conversation today. Thank you, Mr. Majumdar and Mr. Chatterjee, for moderating this exciting conversation. We'll share a small survey with you immediately after the event. This will have an offer to interact with the experts individually for academic preparation and career guidance of your child in your proximity. That's all for the day from your host, Anushka. Hope to see you next month again for another episode of India EduTalk series. Thank you and have a good day, everyone.